Tyjuan Hughey, thank you so much for tuning in. Today you are in for a treat. I have Miss Jeanette Jones from the Memphis Chamber of Commerce, the award-winning Memphis Chamber of Commerce. She is a leader in manufacturing. So I want to thank you so much for coming on, Miss Jeanette Jones. And can you tell us a little bit more about what you're doing in Memphis and how you're helping the manufacturers there stay and grow in Memphis?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. So, as he stated, I am Jeanette Jones. I am the Director of Existing Business and our Advanced Manufacturing Council here in Memphis. That means a lot of different things. Ultimately, is to make sure that companies have what they need to stay and grow in Memphis, and is heavily focused on the manufacturing industry. We have
Mhm.
about 1,207 manufacturers in our region, and we
Wow.
want to make sure that they have everything that they need to grow here. So you mentioned award winning. I would be remiss if I did not share that we were recently named the Chamber of the Year out of 1,700 chambers
Wow.
in the United States. So we're super excited about that. And we receive that honor because of the unique work that we do. We
Mhm.
always say we're not your breakfast chamber, and we work and move in a lot of different spaces and places. So ultimately, like I said, my work is to make sure that companies have what they need to stay and grow in Memphis. And that's like peeling back the layers of an onion, because it's a lot of different things that companies need to stay and grow in Memphis. And
Mhm.
with that, I'll pause, and then because I can go on and on, but I'll pause with that, and then we can go ahead and move to the first question.
Yes, ma'am. So I do have a question, and I want to learn a little bit more about what's the strategic advantage that companies typically have in Memphis and manufacturing companies have in Memphis as a corridor for manufacturing. What are some of the advantages in scaling or advanced operation?
So we have what our strategic advantage is. We have what we call the 4 R's:
Mhm.
road, river, runway, and rail. You can
Mhm.
get anywhere in the United States within 72 hours from Memphis.
Wow.
That's important to any manufacturer, any supply chain and logistics company, or just anybody that's transporting goods.
Mhm.
Number one, we have the road. We have that Highway 72 corridor, which is Lamar Avenue and Poplar Avenue. We
Mhm.
also have runway, which is our airline, which is FedEx. They do a lot of shipping there. They're our lifeblood. Their headquarters are here in Memphis. This is where they
Mhm.
started. Runway, as we just talked about with FedEx, and then we have rail. We have four top rail services that run through Memphis.
Mhm.
That's the rail side of it, and then the river. We have the Mississippi River, so we do a big business from transportation, from the barges, in and out of the city of Memphis. So they transport goods here. So, like I said, the 4 R's: road, river, runway, and rail, that gives us a unique advantage, because if you want things transported in the United States, you can get anywhere from Memphis within 72 hours from Memphis to Mexico.
Yeah, and that's super important, especially in the supply chain learning. Just the infrastructure in place of having accessibility to ports or being able to transport port products. So I do have another question, and this is kind of going on the digital front. In the Memphis area, what patterns do you see and how companies are approaching AI and digital transformation? And what are they focusing on? Are they focusing on pilots? Are they focusing on training? And kind of what are their strategies right now, if you could share?
So it's interesting, because the digital strategy is, it's kind of all over the place. A
Mhm.
lot of our companies, this is new. This is, they understand this is the wave of the future, but they're trying to figure out the same thing. How do we scale? How do we improve?
Mhm.
How do we be more efficient? How do we give better customer service? So all of this, they understand there is a component to that, but they got to figure out, how do I tap into AI and do it the right way?
Mhm.
So for me, it starts with the leadership. Your leadership has to buy in. Once
Right.
the leadership buys in, then that trickles down to the employees of the company, you start with your C-suite, and then you start with your executive leadership team. And then that trickles down to your regular employees, like your plant managers and your people that's actually working the lines, because there's a big piece to that they're trying to navigate. People are afraid of AI. They think that AI is going to take their jobs.
Right.
However, if I worked for a company and they told me, hey, we're getting robots and we're adopting this new AI system, I would do everything in my power to try to upskill, to learn about that so that I will become of great value. Because one thing about AI will be fantastic for the work that we do, but that human element will never go away. You
Right.
have to have someone to program it. You have to have someone to maintain it. And you have to have someone to keep up with the new innovation that's going to constantly happen. So that's where employees become a valuable asset. A lot of times companies, they have not figured out how to display that or how to relay that to their employees. And that's a big piece. That's important. Like I said, it starts at the top. So the leadership has to get the right education and information on it first, and then they can kind of pass it down to their executive leadership. Then they can pass it down to their actual, plant managers, and just to the regular employees that's doing the work day to day.
Right. And with the times changing and AI becoming more prevalent, I hear a lot of times people say AI is going to replace this or AI is going to do this. But I really want people to think of how AI can help you reveal and can
Yeah.
help you do more in manufacturing or supply chain. So I was wondering, what do you believe Memphis manufacturers need right now? Like if it's outside solutions partners coming into Memphis, what do you believe they should offer Memphis manufacturing partners? I know you said you needed workforce development, training, and skills, but how should we approach those manufacturers to make sure they can get the adequate services with that?
So here is what I think the offering should be to manufacturers. It's going to increase productivity. It's
Mhm.
going to reduce costs. It's going to improve quality control. It's going to enhance the customer experience. So just those things alone, I mean, and it'll increase efficiency. To me, that's enough. If
Mhm.
I was a leader of a company and you come to me and say, "Hey, I'm going to reduce your costs. I'm going to increase your
Mhm.
quality, improve your quality control. I'm going to enhance your customer experience," that's enough. That's what the manufacturing, the AI will offer to the manufacturing community.
Mhm.
However, it has not been displayed or put to the C-suite like that.
Mhm.
Once you start to break it down into their language, the ABC instead of the automation and this and that, those are words that are a little bit scary to them. But let's talk manufacturing talk. Let's
Right.
talk about production. Let's talk about reduction of costs. Let's talk about efficiency. Let's talk about talent pipeline. Even
Right.
with from the workforce side of it, people have to maintain these robots. You can't take out the human element of it. You have to
Mhm.
maintain them. You have to program them. There's a lot to that people, if I was working for a company, like I said, I want to make myself a valuable asset. So let
Mhm.
me learn all that I can about this machine, or how I can upskill, or whatever training is going to be offered to me, so that I can become, a triple threat in the company.
Mhm. And I love how you touched on the point how important workforce development is for growth in the region. Um, I would like to know, what typical blocks do you see in the stakeholders' decision making when they are trying to go forward with an AI pilot or AI project? I know it may be education, but what may be some of their hindrance on the training or services that may
I
be?
think the primary hindrance would be fear of the unknown. I think
Mhm.
once they realize, hey, this is going to help move my company forward, all the barriers, all the walls come down. But I think
Mhm.
it's the initial, just like anything that's new.
Mhm.
When they talked about a cell phone coming, or any new technology that's coming, there's a lot of fear around that. But once you can break down those barriers and say, hey, you got to show people the benefit to them. Say, this is how this is going to benefit your company. This is how this is going to benefit your employees. Then everything changes. However, if you're not able to relay to them the quagmire.
Mhm. Okay. Definitely. So that message is super important. Sorry, you were breaking up just a little bit, but I would like to know, what is your typical workflow like day to day? What is it looking like? Are you talking to manufacturers? Are you educating manufacturers on what services they may need to stay and grow in Memphis? What is your typical day to day like in? your line of work?
So my typical workflow is, like I said, it's heavy manufacturers. However, it's for all existing businesses in Memphis. I deal with the larger companies that have 100 plus employees. So it's, talking to companies about their operational pain points. Operational pain points has come back down to workforce and talent pipeline. So my primary role is to make sure companies have what they need to stay and grow in Memphis. It's been heavily focused on existing businesses. Also, once a company is recruited to Memphis and they land, I am the boots on the ground. They become an existing business. So one of the things that we talk about, they say, hey, I want to grow in Memphis. I want to expand my footprint in Memphis. I want to buy a new building. I want to get more equipment. However, they cannot do any of those things without the workforce. And then once you get that workforce, once you're able to do that, you're getting new equipment. Your workforce has to be skilled and upskilled and reskilled to do this work. One of the things that I've learned, I've gone to a couple of conferences in the last couple of months. It's an important conversation that has come up: skills taught versus skills needed. So the skills that are taught should be taught earlier. So we have to start earlier teaching these STEM skills. STEMs is really important in the manufacturing space: that's science, technology, engineering, and math. Most of the manufacturers said they need people that can do basic math, which is the eighth grade math. Also, people that can read a ruler. You have to be able to do that. And a lot of times our students that are graduating from high school are not in that space. So one of the solutions to that is to start early. Let's start as early as elementary school. Let's make sure that we really focus on those things in the sixth grade. We want to get our students from sixth grade to six figures. If we can plant that seed in their minds, that will be, they'll be dynamic. But STEM is a crucial part to just about everything that we're going to do for the jobs of the future. Not necessarily in manufacturing, but in everything. Supply chain and logistics. That piece of STEM is going to be important. So we want to make sure that we constantly talk to our students, our youth, our young adults about that STEM component, which will lead to the good jobs of the future.
And I want to know a little bit more. Is your chamber really engaging with your community and the youth community in programs like that? Or how are you engaging with your community in that aspect?
Absolutely. So we have an initiative that we call our educators tours. So we did these tours monthly. So we educated our educators. We took them to our manufacturing companies. But in addition to that, we included high schools and middle schools on those tours, because we know that students can't be what they can't see. So if we can show them the assets in our community, and I call our manufacturers, they are the assets in our community. So if we can show them the inside of a manufacturing plant, it may spark something in one of these students. They may say, oh, wow, I could work here. I can do this. Because the manufacturing today is not the manufacturing of old. Most of these manufacturing companies, they're clean, they're climate control. It's a, really good work environment. Most of the C-suite in manufacturing, their focus is on the culture. So they want you to be able to work there. They want you to be able to stay and grow there and tell a friend and tell a friend. That's retention at its best. Right. So what we do is I host these tours monthly. We have a partnership with our charter schools and our Memphis and Shelby County schools, and some of our private schools where the manufacturers have opened up their doors and they've raised their hand and said, hey, I want to host. We want students to come and see this. And This was all started by our initiative at the Chamber, my work through an initiative called Upskill Mid-South. So I was charged with standing up this manufacturing council to make sure that we can upskill our students. But a big part of upskilling our students is getting them interested in manufacturing. And the only way you can get them interested in manufacturing is to show them, what manufacturing is by taking them on the tour, giving them an opportunity to ask questions, giving them an opportunity to actually see the inside of a plant so that they can learn about the different jobs. It's a lot of jobs in manufacturing. It's not, you don't just have to be on the floor and work on the line. You can be in HR, you can be in design, you can be in supply chain and logistics. It's like peeling back the layers of an onion. There's something for everybody in that company. You can be in administration. So once we started to show them and expose them to these different opportunities, so we have schools call and say, hey, when is the next tour? How can we go? How can we connect with these companies? So they want us to do two things. They want us to take their students and they want us to introduce them to the companies. So in our space, we can't do this for everybody. So that's why we formulated a partnership with the CTE directors in these different education partners, the college career technical education students, because those are the ones that are more likely to say, hey, I want to get into manufacturing right now. We understand that every student is not a college student. Every student is not a 2-year or 4-year college student. Some of them just want to get some skills, and some of them just need to go to work. And if you can go to work and work for, there's a company in Memphis, it's called IFF, formerly DuPont, it's International Flavors and Fragrances. They start with $29.76 an hour for an 18-year-old right out of high school. That's a good job. And we've hosted tours there, and and they provided steel toe shoes. They actually bought steel toe shoes for everybody that toured and let them keep the shoes, because they was like, hopefully work here someday. So that's how generous some of the companies are, and that's hosting these different initiatives.
Yes, and that's so awesome that you guys are building that pipeline to give these students different avenues and know that college isn't the only option. Because with me coming up, I oftentimes would say, I don't want to go to college. I don't want to go to college. But I'm glad my parents pushed me towards that direction. But if I knew about the manufacturing field or the supply chain field, then I probably would have been more interested. So building that pipeline is super important. And the work y'all are doing is super vital. And I appreciate y'all for that.
Thank you. And I agree with you. I went to college by force, not by choice. And I had to graduate, and I couldn't play around and all of that. However, it fitted me well. But it's one of those things you have to really think about, the student and where they are. It does not mean that they won't go to college. It's just right now, the timing may not be right. Another thing that we do with our manufacturers, a lot of them say, hey, we have tuition reimbursement. Well, tuition reimbursement is not really going to work if you don't have the money to pay for it up front. So that's one of the things we talk about. Why don't you do direct pay? You pay the institution directly. You let this person, they're going to start, just say they're going to start working at International Flavors and Fragrances. And they say, hey, well, I want to go to college. The company will pay the college. Student will sign, or the young adult will sign a contract saying, I'm going to work here until I finish college, and with hopes of getting promoted in the company. To me, that's retention and succession planning at its best. If you pay for me to go to college and I enjoy what I do here, I want to advance in this company. So I want to make sure that I can bring somebody else along. I'm going to say, hey, they paid for me to get my associate's or my bachelor's degree. This is a great place to work. That improves the culture. It improves productivity. And it builds a talent pipeline. If you do it for one, you'll do it for others. And that way people will say, hey, this is a great opportunity for me. I'm young. I can work for this company, and I can become an executive with this company and CEO of this company, maybe even own this company. So those are the kind of innovative ideas that our manufacturers and supply chain companies have to start thinking about. Most people don't have the $6,500 or $7,500, whatever it costs a semester, to pay to be reimbursed.
Right.
You pay the school directly. You got skin in the game. They're signing a contract to continue to work for you until they graduate, with hopes of getting promoted in your company. So it creates a culture. It builds a relationship. It builds retention, and it's a succession plan for you. As your employees start to age out, you got a younger group that's already in school that said, hey, I'm here for the next 3 years because I'm going to college, through this company. So, they're okay with someone leaving because they got students that they're training, that's being trained through their initiative with paying directly through the school.
And I do have 2 last questions for you. I do want to ask, if service providers or new businesses want to come set up in Memphis, what do you recommend for them to do, or how do you recommend to approach the Memphis market if they're selling services to manufacturers, or if they are looking to set up shop in Memphis?
So I suggest, of course, we're always excited that companies want to come to Memphis. We love for companies to stay and grow in Memphis. I suggest starting with the Chamber of Commerce, and that's in any city. Most chambers, just like we do, consider themselves a voice of Memphis businesses and the voice of businesses. We have a pulse on the community. We can connect them to resources. Another part of my job, I consider myself the connector of resources. So if you say, hey, I'm looking to tap into the Memphis market, I want to learn about the businesses in Memphis, I want to, bring my business to Memphis, what do I need to do? There are all types of incentives that you can possibly get. through the state of Tennessee. There's also, different connections that you'll need to make for permits through the city and the county. So those are the things that we do. We connect you to those resources. So I always say start with your local chamber because they can connect you to the resources that you need. And a lot of times it's difficult. You may not really know where to start. Who do I call? These cities are big. You start with the Chamber of Commerce because they have their pulse on the community. And they have tentacles and we can spread you around to the different places. If you need a permit for this, or you're looking to find out, about a business license here, you're looking to find out if there are any incentives for starting a business in Memphis in a opportunity zone, in an area that's, less desirable. Can I get more money if I can help uplift that community? So that's the thing that the chamber can do for you.
Awesome. And last question, 5 years from now, what do you see? Let me rephrase that. 5 years from now, what must manufacturers have to stay competitive in Memphis?
So in order for manufacturers to stay competitive 5 years from now, they're going to have workforce. They're going to have a culture, and they're going to have a product that's desirable. Because a lot of times, you're still building something that may not be as desirable as it used to. So you're going to have to be able to move with the times. You're going to have to be innovative and be creative and be open to ideas, whether it's changing your product just a little bit or whether it's, finding out what the next best thing is. They're going to have the ability to shift and pivot, to listen to the younger people that, that's in their company, or the younger advisors, or the younger executives in their company. A lot of times we're kind of set in our ways and we're like, oh, this has always worked. And, we're going to stick with this. However, you have to be in a position where you can shift and pivot pretty quickly, because as you see, things are constantly changing. And if you don't have that youthful voice or that youthful person in your ear to share that, I think you'll be remiss and you'll be lost. So, you're going to have to have culture. You're going to have an innovative mindset or innovative creative team, to do that. And you're going to have a really strong talent pipeline. You're going to have the ability to step outside of your comfort zone and not just go to your regular temporary service or your American Job Center. Start in middle school. Because by the time you actually fully up and running and grow and expand in Memphis, those kids are in the 6th grade today, they'll be seniors by the time you open up your doors. Right. That's at its best. So you've had a chance to nurture and cultivate that particular talent pipeline. Who wouldn't want to come and work for a company like that? They may say, I remember I toured you when I was in the 6th grade and you always came to my school, or you even adopted my school, or was a part of my after school program. I want to work for you. And that's where it starts. It starts early. So you have to really be, intentional about the things that you do. If you want to capture those students right now that are in the 8th grade, 9th grade, 6th grade, start now. So in order to have that strong talent pipeline 5 years from now, be creative, think about the things that you want. Think about listen to the right people. Don't be so stuck in your ways, and just have a mindset of shifting and pivoting.
I want to thank you so much again, Ms. Jones, for coming on. I do want to ask, do you have anything coming up, or where can our audience find you at?
So they can check me out on our chamber website, greatermemphischamber.com. I am listed under existing businesses, also under workforce, under manufacturing. We have a Talk Chamber podcast, and there's some information there that I've done. So they can, or you can email me at jjones@memphischamber.com. I am always open to listen and share, and help to guide if needed. And also just want to make sure that people can understand that Memphis is a great city, and we're happy to help you if you're interested in coming to Memphis or wanting to connect with our businesses. But I would like to encourage people to join your local Chamber of Commerce. That's where it starts. That is going to be your lifeblood and your key to connecting with businesses, your key to connecting with resources. That's the best, networking opportunity ever. We always say we're not your breakfast chamber because we move in a lot of different spaces and places. But ultimately, it's important to be able to connect with different companies and like-minded people like yourself.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on again, sharing your award-winning strategies and just everything you have been doing, awesome things you have been doing in Memphis. So I wish you continued success, and I wish you the best.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.